Well, hello, howdy, partner. I've just been spending the past couple weeks playing the hell out of some Red Dead 2. What? I'm in the wrong video. Not in any video? Oh, what the f, man? I've been... What is this video called? Elden Ring. Oh, who gives a f?
In search of the Elden Ring.
Be assured, the Elden Ring resteth close at hand. Godfrey the Golden, the twin prodigies, General Radahn, Praetor Rykard, Princess Rani. Willful traitors, all.
Alright, this is the new thing I was talking about. So personally, for little old me, I just find it a mighty shame that not too many people that even play the game understand much of his story. Alright, we're stopping with that. Although that wasn't a joke, I have been playing a lot of Red Dead 2 for like a while. I just got back into it. I never finished the story. Can you believe that? That game came out like 4 years ago, right? I think 2019. Anyways, Elden Ring. What is this? What am I doing? Is this a review, an essay, some rant about how unbalanced the weapons and bosses are? No, none of that. Instead, I'm attempting something super original that no one has done before on this platform, and if they have, they certainly aren't going to be as good as this video. Oh, that hurt to say. Alright, obviously joking. No, this is exactly what I just said. I do find it a terrible shame that most people who have played Elden Ring are not nearly as familiar with its lore that I think they could be. But hey, if you've played it and you're really just not into the idea of wanting to know what everything is about, that's cool, dude. More power to you. But for everyone else who does want to know, and for some reason you haven't checked out VatiVidia's video on this topic, also try saying VatiVidia 5 times in a row really fast. VatiVidia's video. But that guy lays it out honestly perfectly, and not to mention with that smooth silky voice of his. Oh my god, that'll just put you right to sleep, but in a good way. So what do I have to bring to the table? Well, not that much honestly, just a different take in presentation. As much as I love VatiVidia and several other channels like his that have also done amazing work in the research and presentation to lay out like such a dense plot for people to understand, as much as I love that, there's a little part of me that also feels like I'm listening to a lecture, and it's not really super stimulating. Beyond that, I do have a pretty limited attention span, which is why it took me so long to get back into Red Dead. I've had the game for almost 2 years and barely touched it until now. Anyways, this video isn't trying to one-up those awesome other works of theirs. The way I want this to come off as is like, say you and I were just hanging out, I don't know, say like chilling at a pub or having lunch or something, and you were like, hey, you played Elden Ring, right? What's the story there? That all looks super confusing. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but it's worth it. Let me tell you about it. So essentially, this is a friend telling you from their perspective. This is not like a college professor that's going to pull out a 30-page PowerPoint presentation. This is like casual chit-chat, you know? Because this is something I've had the urge to talk about since I first beat Elden Ring. So a bit of backstory, I've beaten the game 3 times and I platinumed it on my PS5. Not trying to flex, it really wasn't a nightmare. I actually genuinely enjoyed every playthrough that I did. To me, it felt almost impossible to re-experience the game the exact same way every time. There is just so much diversity, and it's teeming with branching paths to the point where, especially on the first run, it almost feels like too much. And that's just the world. There are countless builds to try out and weapons to toy with, and these awesome costume sets you find. It's fucking great, man. Oh, but I'm not here to gush on the game. I may just do that at some point, but I am seriously in love with this game and pretty much everything it has had to offer. Like, I'm not joking. We've got the wedding set for the new year, and she's pretty much done with the planning. It's gonna be sick. And you know, when you're a fan of something, you want other people to feel that too, or at least try and convince them just enough to pique their interest into them giving it a go themselves. So that's what this is. Don't let the title mislead you. I'm not gonna talk down to you like a child. I'm just a fucking dweeb telling some people what the hell Elden Ring's all about. But if I'm gonna do this, I do want want to set some stipulations and a little warning. Well, for the warning, I mean just like be patient with me. I've been doing movie reviews for several of the most recent uploads. I'm not ditching that. This isn't a shift in course for the channel. I'm not an Elden Ring channel now either, I promise. This might just be a one-off, but honestly, I'd totally be down for doing like a specific character or storyline deep dive in the future, but we'll see. I've never done an informative video like this, not to this extent. I'm more accustomed to talking about like my own opinions, and also if you've not played the game, all this is story spoilers. But I'm telling you that even if you've never played, what I'm about to lay out is like what I feel to be skimming the top of this iceberg. I'm just wanting to help new fans, current fans, or curious folk as to the general rundown for this game's story. So last thing, I'm not claiming to be an expert that I found all of this information on my own in terms of going into the game and finding the descriptions of the items and all that, because I didn't have the time to discover all of that on my own. My knowledge of this information is coming from an amalgamation of all kinds of sources, from the countless videos I've seen explaining this to the Elden Ring wiki to my personal take on going through the game 3 times. That's where all this is coming from. Whether you find that credible enough, I'll leave that up to you, but it's not like I'm trying to teach a history course on like real world events, although I could do that. I very much enjoy history. But no, like I said, this is just a fanboy talking about something he likes. And the really neat thing about really all of the Souls-like games from FromSoft is that there's not too much that is necessarily set in stone. It's a really neat dynamic where the history of their worlds and the backstory of it all can change within an instant. One item description or dialogue from a character can tell you something that absolutely changes the context for that piece of its history. So yes, their storytelling is very cryptid. I'm not looking to take away the experience of discovering the story the way they intended to. Their games are just so extensive and massive that that's not a super big concern of mine. I can't spoil everything. Honestly, no matter how much research you do, you can't really spoil. There's always something more to learn and discover, and I love that. Okay, we've beaten around the bush long enough. What are we talking about today? Well, my intentions here are to relay kind of a brief overview for the backstory of the game, and so my anchor point is going to be on the Erdtree and the characters and creatures that influence its coming to being and what came after. So let's start with that. If you have a general knowledge on the game, even just seeing screenshots and its artwork, you're probably aware of the existence of this tree in the game. So what is it? What's the big deal about this tree? The Erdtree stands not only as a symbol representing order and harmony in the lands between, but also works as an instrument orchestrated by its creator, which was sent to this plane by the Outer Gods. So a couple titles there that sound confusing, so let's go back. The Erdtree, you can essentially compare it to like the Tree of Souls from the first Avatar movie. All living things that die, their souls return back to this tree as a form of an afterlife, or in Elden Ring's case, potentially, we don't know, used as a harvesting device to perhaps feed the Outer Gods. We're not entirely certain what happens within the Erdtree after someone dies, but the souls that move from the realm of the living go into that tree. And the Lands Between is basically the title to describe the entirety of the playable areas in the game. So the playing field is the Lands Between. There's a powerful being / harvesting totem called the Erdtree that exists within this land, and who put that there are generally known as the Outer Gods. See? Not so bad, just gotta break it down to chunks. Now, we're gonna talk about the tree's creator, which are the Outer Gods, and the relevancy of the greater will. So, the Outer Gods, I kind of relate them to the gods from Greek mythology. They're active, but they're not a physical force seen within the game in the Lands Between. They're neither purely good or evil. Some seem to have their own agendas and ideas of how the world should function, but the only one we need to focus on right now, the main god that influenced the creation of souls and all living beings in this world, is the greater will. We'll call this entity Will, like a person. And Will does something that affects everything in the world with significant consequences. In a sense, Will basically kills, or you could say broke, the One Great, which created the ability for beings to have souls. After doing this, Will sends a star to the Lands Between, and along with that, a being called the Elden Beast. Now, this Elden Beast functions as you could say, like the world police. It's meant to create and establish peace in a land that had no structure or order beforehand. And this beast is the physical manifestation of the Elden Ring, in which the Elden Ring is that logo right there, the Olympic looking thing, that thing. This greater will, our buddy Will, here is also the one responsible for the creation of the Erdtree, which houses the Elden Ring and the Elden Beast. We added some more names in there, so let's go back. From the top, the Outer Gods, beings which govern and influence the universe, including, where the game takes place, the Land Between. Within that land exists the Erdtree, the beacon of souls for this world, and which also keeps the Elden Beast. See? Not too crazy so far. This feels like I'm doing an iceberg video. I just said that, but it is. It's like, I was from the very tippy top, and then we're gonna go. And then, but it's just amazing because like just the very peak of it, just sticking out, if you just go like 1 centimeter down from that, there's like a whole bunch of more lore, and it's like, nope, we're not doing that. We're gonna go nice big chunks here, because the further this goes along, the more complicated it becomes, which is true for any depiction of history, but the best way to learn, at least for me, besides the added visuals, is to start from a broad concept or name and then work my way down. So next we're going to talk about the title of the game, that Elden Ring. Well, what is the Elden Ring? The name itself is a culmination of all sorts of special powers differentiated by runes. Runes with abilities that we can actually access ourselves in the game, and there's a variety of them, and totally worth trying them all if you're in the mood for replays, although some are just generally better than others in my opinion, and I just basically stuck with Godric's Great Rune in my first playthrough, and the reason we're able to even access those runes are because of a very important event before the present day, and that's the Shattering, which is exactly what it sounds like in that the Elden Ring, that thing, is broke. That thing gets broken, gets hammered the shit out of it. And then there is a war which breaks out over the ownership of these runes. Now, there's a lot that leads up to the Shattering, but again, right now, brief overview of things here. Because now that you know what the Elden Ring is, we're going to take a break and talk about the player's role in this world. So what is your purpose in all this here? Why are you here? Well, unless you bought the game yourself or got in a bundle, in-game, no matter what name you give yourself in the intro, you are always referred to as the Tarnished. And without going into backstory that I don't want to discuss right this second, you are branded as such because of your inability to receive the grace from the Erdtree, which means you can't really die. That grace is the ability to enter the afterlife and rebirth within the Erdtree. And I know that begs the question, well, if there's no Erdtree, then there'd be no afterlife. Honestly, I don't really know, but for the canon of this world, for the sake of argument, we'll just say that, sure, as far as we know, there's no afterlife outside of the Erdtree. And your role in this game is the defining factor to how the lands between will operate from your involvement. You have several ways to go about this. There are 6 total endings for this game. Each have their own consequences that I'd encourage you to research yourself, as I don't want to spoil them all, but I'm just going to talk about the first base ending, which I'm not sure if that's considered the true ending to the game because each of the endings are pretty striking on their own, and I feel that it's really up to the players to decide where it should go. And you do, although my feeling is the default ending is probably the safest bet. But with the base ending, your end goal in the game is to eventually become the next Elden Lord, and in doing that, you have to mend the Elden Ring. When I say Elden Lord, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's becoming the next ruler of this land. To mend the ring, you have to gather the great runes which require you beating the bosses of the game. You don't have to beat them all, just the ones necessary to access entry into the Erdtree. And honestly, this is it. If you just want to know the basic idea of what you're doing and why, then I feel this would be a good point in the video to stop, really, honestly, because you as the Tarnished given grace, that gives you the ability to finally be resurrected again. You are able to come back from the Erdtree, and your goal is just to put an end to the madness. That's it. That's the game. But if you want to stick around and get a bit more lore, please, happy to have you. Okay, so what's the next best step from here? Well, I think we should go back and talk a bit more about the lead up into the Shattering and after, because to me that's really the meat and potatoes of what got me so invested in this lore, that time period and the time period shortly after the ring was shattered. But to do that, we're going to need to talk about Empyreans and what they are. New title card. So Empyreans is a title for people or beings that are special enough to be raised to the status of a god. The qualifications for that are not really known, and there's several ways to become one. However, the first and arguably the most important Empyrean we need to talk about here is Queen Marika the Eternal, and she achieved her god status by agreeing to become a vessel for the Elden Ring. In-game, there's currently 5 Empyreans that are known, and 2 of them are bosses you can fight in-game. So why is Queen Marika so important? Well, I'll tell you. So when you become an Empyrean, you can acquire what we can consider like a servant or a pet, and these are called shadows. Their full title are Shadowhound Beasts, but we'll just stick to calling them shadows. And Queen Marika is given a shadow called Malekith. Again, Queen Marika is a person who was granted god status and she received a shadow. And the queen does something which I interpret to be her trying to assure her immortality, because naturally when you become a god, hence you then become immortal. But these gods are not entirely unkillable, as there is a power which is known to be one of the only ways to truly kill a god, and that power is called the Destined Death. And Marika doesn't want that, but it's not entirely self-serving, as the removal of destined death through the Rune of Death is what enables everyone in a sense to have eternal life. According to what we know, all souls are reborn once given back to the Erdtree, and Queen Marika removes this particular rune from the Elden Ring and has her shadow Malekith to guard the Rune of Death from being used, at least without her consent, theoretically, which upon doing so created a new era and structure taking the form of the Golden Order, which is more of a set of beliefs than a literal organization. Best way to think of it is that it's a religious belief. That belief is the mental backbone, kind of like the philosophical safety net for many, many people in the lands between. Again, Marika is ascended to godhood, she gets a shadow, she removes destined death from the lands between, and establishes the Golden Order. Now, before going into explaining what the Golden Order is, let's take a break. If you're anything like me, when you're learning or studying something, taking a break is good for the mind, but if you're ready for more, skip the time code right here. Alright, so what are we gonna talk about for a break here? For a second I thought about like kind of stealing Tekking's thing of like at the end of his videos he does like animal facts or geography facts or things like that. But I'm not gonna do that. I don't really do this in videos. Let's talk about Red Dead again, or some of the games I've been playing lately. I don't really talk about games that much anymore, but alright. I bought Armored Core 6 a couple weeks ago. I finished it twice. I had a great time. This will be like a mini review. Really good, really fun, really fast paced. Just some of the sections, there's just like massive difficulty spikes that I personally don't really, I don't understand it, because some missions are like less than a minute long, and then there's other missions where like I'm on my third playthrough right now. And I am stuck on a section where I have to beat 3 bosses at the same time, like three other mechs, and I just can't do it, man. Not right now. I don't have the mental. That's why I wanted to slow down. That's why I went back to Red Dead. I was like, you know what? Let's do the complete opposite. I was just playing a lot of Smash and Armored Core, and I was like, let's just go back and let's just do something real slow, something with a good story, something I can really sink my teeth into. And boy, have I! Oh my god, I am horribly obsessed with that Yeehaw game right now, dude. And to go from Armored Core to Red Dead is such a hard cut, because the pacing in that game is just so fast, and Red Dead is like snail's pace in comparison. But you know what gets me hooked is that collection feature for hunting. I really like hunting in that game. I find it super addicting, and the best parts is that I can enjoy the comfort of hunting for a pelt without handling the mess in real life. I've never been hunting, but I'd love to go. I've gone fishing, but I get to do hunt. But also, story in that game, like really all the stories, not just the main campaign, so interesting. It's so good. And there is like so much to see. I just got around to like the 15-hour mark, and there's still a stupid amount of shit I haven't seen or done yet. God, I cannot imagine doing another playthrough. Like this one's gonna take a lot of time. It's one of those games, like Elden Ring, that every time you sit down to play, you're going to experience something new. Every time. Amazing experience. I'm shocked it took me so long to get into it. Okie dokie, back to the video. Enough talking about myself. The Golden Order, its fundamentals are based on 2 principles, and I quote, the law of regression, the pull of meaning and the yearning to converge, and the law of causality, the pull between things which link all things in a chain of relation. Big words, big stuff. What is this garbled mess? Well, breaking it down basically is that it's like all connected. There's a desire to collate in that there's a purpose to it. I take it as that it means there's a fate and that nothing happens on its own as a whim, and that there's a purpose to that and a desire to resolve itself on its own. Like a roundabout belief in the circle of life. Eventually, things come back together and dissipate. I went deeper into that because the Golden Order is a prominent belief that comes up several times during the game, and you can kind of structure how you see the lands between functioning within that belief, which is really amazing. And it's not even the only religion in the game, but we're not going to get into that. But you can think of the Golden Order as the dominant religion in this land. It's just incredible because, especially once you know the backstory to the religions and some of the beliefs, that you can actually see the world through the characters' lenses in that way. It can be like, I can see why you believe in that, or why, well, some of them, not all, some of them are just like, all right, you're just an asshole. But besides that, it's just really engaging because the Golden Order is kind of like, you can feel that in the world. It's literally like happening before your eyes. You are a part of that in a sense, and I just really like that idea. I think it's really cool. I've never played a game that has a religion that you can actually, if you're open-minded, just like take a moment and be like, oh, I am a part of this process. I am contributing to this. This is all happening because of this, and I love that. It's so good. Marika is a god. Malekith is her shadow. She removes death and allows for rebirth in the land, and creates the Golden Order. Now, at that time, just creating a new order didn't mean instantaneous peace. There were several battles and wars taking place for rule over the Erdtree between Marika and this land's inhabitants. As a result, Marika got herself a hubby. She takes herself a consort named Godfrey, and he acts primarily as Marika's vessel of war to conquer the other factions, as well as becoming the first Elden Lord. And Godfrey, also known as Horaloo, the Lord of the Battlefield. God, I love this boss. And fighting him only gets better, or debatably more emotionally conflicting, once you learn a bit of his backstory. This man took down the fire giants. For reference, you fight just one of these fuckers in game, and he is more than a handful. In the war against the giants, can you imagine how much of an unstoppable force he must have been in order to conquer them? He is so cool. I just love his design. I know he seems so stripped down compared to the other boss designs, but I really had an aggravatingly fun time going up against him every time. I don't know. I think I'm just a sucker for that classic barbarian warrior design. And not to mention that lion pelt. I mean, that's his Stan too. He's like a JoJo. I don't know shit about JoJo, but he's like a JoJo character reference. Get it? Because within the story, unfortunately, once Godfrey had finally conquered the lands for his queen, she cuts him loose. Get the fuck out of here. Just literally banishes him. Even after they bear 3 kids together, she actually banishes him from the lands between, and he becomes the very first of the Tarnished. Oh, my dude, I am so sorry. A moment of silence for Godfrey. But not that long, because this guy's still an asshole. He's just hard as fuck. I had, my god, how many tries? I don't even want to know. 3 playthroughs? I got easier each time, but still. But alright, getting ahead of myself. Marika and Godfrey have 3 children in the time of their marriage. Those children are Godwyn the Golden, Morgott, and Mohg the Omen twins. The later 2 are actually bosses you can fight in-game, with Morgott being the only one required for the default ending. And we're going to talk about one of them specifically because their death is what sets off the beginning of the Shattering. Godwyn the Golden, Marika's firstborn, is assassinated during the Night of the Black Knives. Now, how could he be killed? He's a demigod and supposed to be immortal. The only way he could die is from the Rune of Death. Correct. Godwyn was assassinated with daggers that possessed the Rune of Death. But with Malekith guarding the rune, how could that happen? Well, the person actually responsible for that is this mischievous little witch right here, the Lunar Princess Ranni. And she actually has a quest line that affects one of the 6 endings in the game too. You'll run into her at some point. For sake of brevity, she steals it. She pulls a heist, she pulls an Ocean's 11, and just swipes it underneath Malekith's nose. Nobody notices. Until. But Godwyn's death is very significant to Marika, as he is basically her favorite child of the 3. Without it getting too overwhelming, I'll just say that his death is also more significant based on the fact that being killed with the rune, his soul was killed as well as his body, which means there wasn't a chance for his soul to return to the Erdtree. And that's really what ticks Marika off. And that is the reason the Elden Ring is broken, the Shattering. After the assassination, Marika loses it and takes her hammer and goes to town on that thing. Just imagine the rage, guilt, and grief of this mother pounding away on the symbol that had a part in killing her son. We've got one last chunk of lore in the story that I want to go through, and that'll be it for this video. I'm not sure if there'll be a part 2, really just depends on how this goes. Maybe this is all too convoluted, but I hope not. I've had a nice time working on this. It's a nice change of pace. But yes, refresher. The Golden Order is established. Marika weds Godfrey and gets to work conquering the lands between. They have children, and as a result of their firstborn's assassination by Ranni the Witch, Marika shatters the Elden Ring. Man, when you put it all in a general layout like that, it really puts things in perspective, because just researching on the Golden Order brings you down this rabbit hole of all the other beliefs and how they came to be. And that's why I love this lore so much, man. And it's nice, at least for now, it's all coming from one game, one source. Like, at least we don't have to read compendiums spanning years to get a basic understanding of things. It's great. To me, this was the most enjoyable time I've had in learning backstory like this. And Bloodborne's a good one too. And now, ooh, that's an idea. So Queen Marika, she shatters the Elden Ring and everything is honky-dory.
Wrong!
Yeah, no, all chaos breaks out, because now these shards of the ring, these runes with incredible power, are launched all across the lands between, just sitting there, out of the fire and into the frying pan. And as you can imagine, the beings which are above Marika aren't too happy with this development. It's uncertain whether it was the Greater Will or the Elden Beast, but something more powerful than Marika came and imprisoned her within the Erdtree as punishment. And that is where she remains until you confront her again once you finally enter the Erdtree. And the moment that the Elden Ring was shattered, that is what enabled the Tarnished that had died to return back to life once more, including my man Godfrey. Like, so his ex-wife ditched him after he just served his purpose, right? And I'm a Tarnished, he's a Tarnished, we share a common goal, so let's work together and get you some revenge, dude, right? He's the 3rd to last boss in this game. His only desire of vengeance is on you for killing his son Morgott. Besides that, based on my takeaway from his introduction, all my guy wants to do is see Marika again, to be granted audience. And I love that. I think that's so touching and sad, especially because we have to kill him. Like, I would have loved to have seen that scenario where he reunites with Marika, but he'd also be in for quite the surprise when he did. I'm sure he'd be a little more than confused. Should I explain that? Long story short, Marika's new husband and her kind of fused to become one and the same person, or one becomes the other, either or. So that's why I said that. You can research that if you want, we're just not going to get into that right now. Yeah, but that's it. That's the last bit of lore I want to talk about. There's still so much more we could talk about. I skipped through a lot of information, but like I said, I just wanted this this to be a summary of what I feel would be a solid foothold in the door to get you into the story of Elden Ring. So for one last go, I'm going to review, but this time from the very beginning, and we'll lay everything out nice and neat for you. One last time. In the lands between, the setting for the game, the Greater Will sent a vassal in the form of the Elden Beast, which resides in the Erdtree. The Erdtree is the beacon of souls which enable all living beings in the land between to eventually become living once again. Queen Marika, the first Empyrean, acquires a shadow named Malekith. Together, they remove and guard the Rune of Death, allowing souls to be reborn through the Erdtree. Through this, the belief of the Golden Order is created, and Marika weds Godfrey. Godfrey acts on behalf of his queen to bend the lands between under her command, and is subsequently banished after having served his duty, and then becoming the first Tarnished. On the night of the Black Knives, Marika's firstborn son Godwyn the Golden is assassinated, and in response, Marika shatters the Elden Ring with her hammer. After the war which follows, the Tarnished are graced to return back to the lands between, and which you, the player, come to put an end to the conflict by becoming the next Elden Lord. And that's the way the news goes. If this managed to pique your interest just a bit, then hell yeah, mission accomplished. I really hope that didn't come off as too confusing to sit through. Again, first video of this kind, so my apologies. But if you're interested in learning a little more lore, then first, by all means, let me know if this is the kind of thing you'd like to see more of, if I presented this in a way that clicked for you. I'd be more than happy to continue. But if not, no worries, I'm going to link a couple videos in the description below that I think really are some of the best explanations on this lore that I've seen on the platform. My personal advice to you, if you do so, is to take the story in chunks, similar to what we did here. Focus on one or two certain components in Elden Ring to research. I found it the easiest to just learn the story through the timeline from the very beginning up until the present day of the game. And the best anchor to that, I think, besides looking into more about the Erdtree, is in focusing on the royal lineage, starting with Marika and Godfrey. Follow the line from those two, as their descendants are really the vital roles in how you as a player are interacting with the game. And of course, if you haven't already, please just give Elden Ring a try. If hard games scare you, it's okay. This was my first FromSoft game that I played of this nature, and there is so much here to distract you as well as encourage you to push through those stretches of difficulty. I really think this is also one of the best FromSoft games to start with, because, you know, I joked about the unbalanced nature of it, but that actually kind of helps with new players because you set the difficulty based on the gear that you're acquiring and how much grinding you're doing and whether you do things in order or not, or if you're trying to do exploit. You can make the game easier on yourself, and it's not that difficult to do so. So you creating the difficulty gauge, I think, is what really is a good start for people who are maybe interested in this Souls-like genre. After this, I played Bloodborne and I loved it. It's still a debate in my head because I've only done one playthrough, but Bloodborne was potentially my favorite of what I played. And after that, Sekiro, which I really enjoyed a lot, but I had my own issues with that. Just one though. But again, unlike other Souls-like games, if you're stuck on a boss here, you don't have to fight him right then and there. Get out, go exploring, get into the crafting, rummage through some dungeons, or just ride around to see the sights, reconstruct your build. This game is extremely generous in allowing you to respec your skill points. On my last run, I basically had tried almost all the different main builds that I wanted to within the same playthrough. I respec'd like 4 times just in my last run alone, just because I wanted to. I will revisit this game, that I know I will do. There's still 3 other endings I haven't seen through yet, and their descriptions add a lot more lore that I've yet to fully grasp. And you know what? I hope I never do. I hope that there's always something more to learn about this game. It is one of the best game worlds I've ever experienced since I got into gaming. Alrighty then, that's the video folks. Thank you all so much for watching. Feedback on this video especially would be very, very much appreciated. I seriously had a great ride working on this, and it was great to have this as an excuse to turn one of my passions into something I could discuss for this channel. Next video will be a little more standard, but again, if this is the kind of content that you'd like to see more coming from me, then I'd be more than happy to do so. Cause then we could talk about him and her, and not you. You're a monster! Especially him. If I feel the green light for it, I'm thinking to either maybe talk about the war post-shattering between all the gods and demigods, that, or talk about this fucker right here, the Dung Eater. This guy that's got some major issues. The literal shit eater has his own quest line and ending, and I'd love to just talk about him. That'd be a really fun video. But not this